When people think of Israel's Mossad, they imagine daring operations, spies slipping across borders, assassinations in distant capitals, and networks of agents gathering secrets. But behind every covert operation is something less glamorous, and just as critical, money. How does Mossad, one of the world's most feared intelligence agencies, actually fund its shadow budget? Israel's official defense budget is public, but Mossad's finances, hidden, classified, and protected by secrecy laws. And yet, pieces of the puzzle have surfaced. Special allocations from Israel's treasury, off-the-books deals with defense contractors, even revenues generated abroad through front companies and joint ventures. In this video, we'll peel back the layers, how Mossad's budget is built, how Israel justifies secrecy, how shadow funding links to arms exports, tech ventures, and even diaspora networks, and why in 2025 this matters more than ever as intelligence costs soar in a volatile Middle East. By the end, you'll understand not just Mossad's operations, but the money machine that makes them possible. The scale of secrecy: Israel spends around $25 billion annually on defense. But how much of that goes to Mossad? Officially, it's classified. Analysts estimate Mossad's share at $2 to $3 billion per year. But that number doesn't tell the full story. Unlike the CIA, whose black budget is debated, at least in broad strokes, by U.S. lawmakers, Mossad's budget is set quietly by Israel's finance ministry and approved behind closed doors by a small parliamentary committee. Only a handful of officials ever see the real figures. This secrecy is intentional. It shields Mossad's capabilities, operations, and partnerships from scrutiny. But it also creates fertile ground for speculation. Where does the money really come from? Direct state allocations. First, the basics. Mossad is directly funded through Israel's treasury, drawing from taxes and national defense spending. Salaries, logistics, and infrastructure are covered here. These funds keep the core machine running, recruiting agents, training officers, maintaining safe houses, and managing overseas stations. But state funds alone don't explain Mossad's reach. The agency runs operations on multiple continents, deploys advanced technology, and carries out missions that rival much larger powers. That requires a shadow budget. Defense exports and tech ecosystem. Israel is one of the world's top arms exporters. From drones to cyber tools, Israeli defense companies sell billions annually. Many of these firms are staffed by former Mossad, Shin Bet, and IDF intelligence officers. Some revenues are quietly funneled back into intelligence work. This happens through R&D partnerships, where cutting-edge tools are co-developed with Mossad, partly subsidized by commercial sales. For example, cyber surveillance platforms like Pegasus were developed by ex-intelligence operatives, exported abroad, and sometimes tied to Mossad's operational needs. Drone systems tested in conflict zones are later marketed globally, with royalties indirectly funding further intelligence projects. It's a symbiotic loop. Mossad benefits from private sector innovation, while defense companies benefit from the aura of Mossad-tested credibility. Front companies and global ventures. Like the CIA, Mossad maintains front companies abroad. These range from shipping and logistics firms to consulting outfits and trading houses. Their functions: provide cover for agents, generate profits, facilitate covert financial flows. Such companies can own property, move goods, and open bank accounts in ways Mossad cannot directly. Profits, contracts, and financial instruments become part of the agency's unofficial cash streams. Reports suggest that some Mossad-linked firms operate in Africa, Asia, and even Europe, blending legitimate business with intelligence support. Diaspora networks. Another sensitive element: financial flows from the Jewish diaspora. Globally, networks of sympathetic business leaders and philanthropists have historically supported Israeli intelligence causes. Sometimes this is done openly, as with donations to defense-linked charities. Other times, support flows quietly, routed through intermediaries. While not a core budget line, such contributions have historically underwritten special projects, especially during Israel's early decades, when resources were tighter. Covert trade and resource deals. Mossad has also been linked to covert trade arrangements, especially during sanctions regimes, For example, in the 1970s and 80s, Mossad facilitated arms for oil swaps with Iran, despite public hostility. During conflicts in Africa, Mossad operatives reportedly brokered resource deals, diamonds, minerals, even rare metals, to secure both intelligence and funding streams. Such operations are rare today, but the legacy remains. Mossad's shadow budget often blurs into covert diplomacy and trade. Why the shadow budget matters now. In 2025, Israel faces enormous intelligence costs. Monitoring Iran's nuclear program, countering Hezbollah, tracking Hamas networks, and operating globally against cyber threats all demand money. At the same time, Mossad's role has expanded into cyber and AI-driven intelligence. Building supercomputers, buying zero-day exploits, and funding tech startups costs billions. These aren't line items you want exposed in a public budget, so the shadow budget keeps growing. State funds provide the base, defense exports and tech deals feed the middle, and global ventures fill in the gaps. The accountability questions secrecy fuels efficiency, but also risk. Critics in Israel argue that Mossad's financial opacity weakens democratic oversight. While Israelis broadly trust Mossad's mission, scandals periodically erupt when links between private firms, exports, and covert state backing become too visible. Internationally, Mossad's funding system also creates friction. Tools developed with shadow funds sometimes end up in authoritarian hands abroad, sparking backlash. Pegasus spyware is one example, raising questions about how shadow-funded technologies ripple into global politics. Mossad's shadow budget is not one single pool of secret cash. It's a web of streams, direct treasury funds, defense exports, private sector partnerships, global front companies, and diaspora support. Together, they create a flexible, deniable, and resilient funding model that keeps Israel's intelligence machine operating far beyond its size. And that's the real story. Israel may be a small country, but through Mossad's shadow budget, it sustains one of the world's most active intelligence networks, spanning continents, shaping conflicts, and influencing global security. The money is invisible, but its impact impossible to ignore.